The story begins with this cafe. A middle-aged hero came in, holding the head of a fawn wolf, and right at that moment, an important news broadcast was airing on the television. The hero sat down, and he was greeted by a waiter. The waiter called him Old Kyo and asked about his hunt for the day. Old Kyo shared that it was nothing much. He hunted with rookies today, and there was nothing valuable from the loot they got. He then turned his attention to the huge screen. An important event was about to start. This was a broadcast to their Congress. All of the congressmen had voted and were about to rule on a decision. A man announced that the votes were 325 in favor, with 0 votes against and 0 abstentions. He declared that the new rule, called deprivation of the mask, was now enforced. This man was Hia, the president of the parliament. He addressed the hero named Mask and told him that there was a lot of evidence proving that he had committed crimes that cost the lives of civilians. He also accused Mask of attacking allied heroes from other countries, causing an ill-fated relationship between nations. Hia and all the members of Congress officially sentenced the hero, Mask, to the death penalty. However, because of Mask's contributions in expelling the monsters and alien invaders from Earth, they reduced the sentence. But there would be consequences. All of Mask's titles, including Supreme Leader of the Commonwealth and Supreme Marshal, would now be stripped away. The only title Mask had left was that of Special Hero. This meant that Mask would still be forced to help the public and the government if a problem arose. He would still return to the battlefield if necessary. This event was being broadcasted everywhere. Some people were against this decision. They knew that this hero had saved them from countless disasters over the years. One man even stated that if Mask hadn't existed, humanity would have been extinct. However, 2 young heroes disagreed. They argued that all the credit shouldn't go to Mask alone, and an argument ensued. The man who defended Mask continued to make his case. He didn't like how Mask treated other heroes, but he also believed that many of the allegations were false. Their attention turned back to the broadcast. He had told Mask that he could now leave the platform as a special hero. He added that humanity would never forget his contributions as their savior. Mask remained silent. He stared at Hia, then at the congressman. But something was wrong. Mask didn't understand what was happening. He thought he had already died in his fight against the Lord of the Weaving Night. Yet, here he was alive, standing on this platform. He wondered if this was some kind of flashback, the moment where he would be betrayed by his companions. As he was trying to process his thoughts, a notification appeared before him. It was from a system. It showed that Mask had already completed his goal of helping humanity construct a new national alliance. Now he was given 2 choices. Hero's Path. A new crisis had appeared, and even if humanity was foolish, he would still protect them from the shadows. Monster's Path. A new crisis had appeared, but this time, he would protect the world as a monster. It didn't matter how. After all, he would become a monster himself. The system gave Mask 20 minutes to decide. After that, he would be sent to an F-level environment. The greatest hero of humanity stood at a crossroads. But after thinking about it, the choice wasn't difficult. This time, he chose the Monster's Path. Hia then interrupted Mask, asking why he wasn't responding. He assumed that Mask was dissatisfied with their verdict. Hia knew and acknowledged Mask's contributions to society, but as a leader, he needed to carry out this decision. Mask's actions had hindered many of their political strategies, and in order to regain the trust of other nations, the Congress had spent years turning the public against him. They made Mask their scapegoat. By placing all the blame on him, the Congress could make themselves look great again. With this, Mask would become nothing more than a relic of the past, and the people would turn to Congress for protection. This move also allowed these greedy politicians to act however they pleased. If someone opposed them, they would be taken care of. But before they could celebrate, Mask spoke up. He objected. An uproar erupted inside the venue. Hia, however, had been expecting this. He knew that Mask's objection would make it seem as though he was clinging to power, just like the man who had been criticizing him throughout the hearing. Then, Mask made his plea. He wanted to give up his special hero title as well. Silence fell over the room. Hia was caught off guard. Mask stood up and repeated himself. He was giving up the title of special hero. He told everyone that he was tired of being a hero. Hia began shouting at Mask, accusing him of rejecting their verdict out of revenge. But Mask clarified. He wasn't disappointed by their decision. In fact, he was glad. Hia hadn't expected this at all. He thought their plan had been flawless, that they could continue using Mask to protect them. He believed that Mask would fight the Congress, not surrender his status completely. Hia then declared that Mask couldn't leave just yet. If he was giving up his title, then he should also give up his power. The people were confused. Some thought this was too much to ask. Mask was a rank 13 hero, while the next strongest was only rank 9, and that was Hia himself. Mask was the only person who had ever broken through the 10th level realm. Most current heroes believed that such an achievement was impossible to surpass. Hia continued his speech, smearing Mask's image further. He claimed that after all the resources spent on Mask, he had no right to abandon humanity. If Mask truly wanted to step down, then he must also surrender his power. Mask responded. His aura began to surge. Hia fell silent. The congressman and the audience watching from around the world were stunned. Mask agreed to Hia's demand. He raised his hand and began to release his power. A suffocating pressure filled the venue. The greedy men in Congress started to feel the weight of it. Mask continued gathering energy. People began fainting. They couldn't handle the sheer force. Even Hia, a rank 9 hero, struggled. He had to exert all his strength just to remain conscious. Mask's aura was so overwhelming that everyone in the room was forced to their knees. And now, since they wanted his power so badly, he was more than willing to give it to them. A massive ray of light shot toward the sky, obliterating everything in its path. People outside the building mistook it for a supernatural phenomenon. Some believed a king-class monster had descended upon the city. But this light, which had once symbolized hope for humanity, now carried a different meaning. They had betrayed a hero once again for their own selfish gain. Minutes later, Mask was done. His power was gone. Hia, still standing, was surprised that he had managed to withstand Mask's pressure. But then he grinned, his sinister, knowing smirk. Finally, he thought, Mask was just an ordinary human now. Mask was just an ordinary human now. The greatest hero of humanity had become nothing again, and with that, Mask started to leave. He reached for his mask and removed it. Finally, his responsibility for these fools was over. House still hadn't moved on. He knew that as soon as Mask walked out of this venue, he would be facing his end. But then, a bright red light appeared below Mask, and he was transported. Howe couldn't believe what had just happened. Multiple notifications popped up again. Mask was transported to a level 4 secret realm, and it was a mother spider hatching nest. Somewhere along a portal, these heroes came out, and they were about to raid this secret realm. Their leader warned his team that they were about to fight level 3 spider guards. These spiders were as big as humans. This lady told their healer that she didn't need to be afraid. These guys then told their leader to stop messing around as they were excited to kill the monsters. The other one thought that it was also a waste because they would not be able to watch Mask's trial. The lady uttered that if it wasn't for Mask's trial, this secret realm would not be available for them because other heroes would also be raiding this place. After some time, their leader told them that it was now time to clear this dungeon. But before they could enter it, the portal shined again. They thought that someone was coming out of it. This man appeared out from the portal. These guys thought that something was wrong about this man because he came into the secret realm without any proper equipment. This guy was Mask, and it had been a while since he entered a lower-level dungeon like this one. He then remembered something. When he had just awakened, Mask happened to enter a dungeon that had a time limit on clearing, and the boss in that dungeon was a demon god. But right now, Mask was back to being an ordinary citizen. He was only a level 1 human, and the system had even sent him in here. Mask was still not sure about this path that he took, but he really looked forward to how things would turn out, especially now that he needed to save the world as a monster. The leader of the party then approached him. He asked Mask if he was there to raid the dungeon. He also asked where his weapon was since Mask had no equipment with him. Mask told the leader that his fists would be his weapon. The leader was glad because he thought that Mask was a martial artist. This was a class that specialized in using their body as a weapon. The leader also asked Mask about his level. He was expecting that this martial artist was at least level 3. Mask told him that he was just level 1. This shocked the whole party. The leader approached him again and asked if he was planning to die inside the dungeon. But Mask told them that he was there to clear the dungeon. These guys were not buying it. After all, a level 1 hero without any equipment had no chance against a level 3 secret realm. Mask then told them that they needed to relax. He would not even try to bother them. The leader made sure to remember this guy's statement. He told Mask that even if he needed their help, they would not bother themselves. After their conversation, the party proceeded to enter the realm, but the lady looked at Mask one more time before leaving him alone. Their fight inside the realm then started. This lady used her fire skill towards these monsters. The other guy was an archer, and he provided extra support and damage when his teammates needed him. Their leader and the other guy were tasked with being on the front lines. Meanwhile, Mask was just staring at them from the sidelines. He was then approached by this girl. She told Mask that their leader was not really a rude man. He was just concerned about his safety because the realm was indeed a dangerous place to be. She warned him that if he wasn't careful, he would pass away. Mask then started praising these heroes. Nowadays, he said, they really had become progressive and cautious. He thought that all of these things were built using their blood and tears. This girl told him that even though Mask looked young, his way of speaking was like those who were in Congress. In short, he sounded like an old man. This trait and training among the aspiring professional heroes started from a policy that Mask had enforced. This required all heroes to cooperate with each other, and this led to lower death rates inside the realms. After that, this girl introduced herself. Her name was Yin Zishi, and she was a level 2 healer. Mask introduced himself as well. His real name was Sko Q, and he hadn't picked a class yet. From now on, we will address him using this name. He said that he was still thinking about it. Q thought that all of the existing classes today were all created by him. Zishi suggested that since Q's physique was not really suitable for melee-type classes, he should opt to choose spellcasting classes. This would also prevent him from being in constant danger on the front lines. She then apologized to Q because she had been too talkative. As this went on, a pointed object appeared behind Zishi. Q quickly pulled her. It was an attack from a monster, and Zishi nearly got hit by it. The archer shouted that this monster was a shadow spider. Q saved this girl from its attack, and then quickly grabbed one of the spider's legs. Using just his bare hands, he was able to rip it apart. Q pulled the leg and then used it to attack the spider back. This guy had just defeated a shadow spider using only his left hand, and on top of that, he had used the spider's leg as his weapon. The spider died in just one hit. The other party members couldn't believe what had just happened. They thought that the path of a martial artist was too much. This guy said that he had already seen other martial artists, but none of them could replicate what Q did just now. Q had accurately targeted the spider's weakest joint and attacked it in such a short moment. They knew that Q's skill was not ordinary. Q also told Zishi to let go now, since there was no danger anymore. Zishi didn't notice that she had been hugging Q the whole time. She quickly apologized and got embarrassed after realizing it. As for Q, he found out that the monster path didn't affect his leveling system. He got 500 experience points from the spider, meaning he didn't have to worry about the penalty for killing high-level monsters. Their levels would be proportional to the experience gain. Combined with his knowledge from all the battles he had fought when he was still the greatest hero, he could easily get back his strength from before. The leader of the party also praised Q because of his extraordinary talent. He really had what it took to go into this secret realm. He also thanked Q for saving his teammate. With this, Q would also receive a share of the reward when they cleared this realm. Q told him that he just did that because it was the right thing to do. After that, these professionals continued their quest. They easily defeated all the shadow spiders lurking in the area. The leader then said that the boss should be around the corner now. He reminded his teammates that after this fight, they would all go back to the real world. Their battle plan would also be the usual. As a tank, he would take the aggro, and the rest of them would do the damage. He also reminded this lady to take advantage of her fire skill to burn the spider silk. The archer was also excited to wrap this up because he still wanted to watch the trial of Mask. The other one butted in and told him that most probably Mask was found guilty. They were also curious about Mask's face. No one had ever seen his face with that mask of his. This girl used to be his supporter, but it all changed because of the rumor that Mask killed all the people in the city of Tuga. Zishi then defended Mask. She said that Mask had no other choice but to do that because all of the people there got infected by a demon. It was Mask's last resort. This guy teased her because she was still protecting the hero's image in front of them, but then the leader told them to stop talking. He thought that maybe Q was already irritated with them, and thus their quest continued again. They now arrived at the part where more and more spider webs were scattered around them, but they didn't feel scared because they were more after the reward they could get after defeating the boss monster. Then a monster made its move. This alerted these professionals. A huge spider really did appear in front of them. The leader took the initiative to take the aggro. While he got the attention of the boss monster, the others started their attacks. Q easily dodged the attacks. He remembered that monsters in the lower realms didn't have any intelligence. This was the reason they could be defeated easily. They continued to overwhelm this monster with their attacks. Zishi also provided support and healed their leader as he was tanking all the damage. Not long after, the monster was defeated. The leader was proud because they cleared a level 3 secret realm without taking any major injuries. He told them that the rewards would be distributed evenly and that they would also give Q his share. RMC heard him say level 3 secret realm, but the system told him that he would be transported to a level 4 secret realm. He thought that there was something wrong here. The other guy then exclaimed that there was no treasure chest beside the fallen boss monster. They also felt an ominous aura up ahead of the tunnel. Then they saw a girl in a student uniform walking toward them. This lady noticed something about the girl's head. She was wearing an astronaut helmet. At this moment, they knew that the reason why the treasure chest didn't appear was that the big spider wasn't the boss of this realm. This girl is? This guy then positioned himself. He thought that this secret boss was not that strong because the pressure he felt from the spider was greater than that from this girl. However, the boss monster was struggling to walk straight. She suddenly ran frantically toward them. This guy met her head on, but instead of dodging, the monster met his attack, and it got her. The attack was spot on. The others were just watching. This guy, even bragged about this fight being so easy. He then pulled his spear back as he intended to finish this fight off. His attack left a hole in the monster's body, but then webs came out from the hole and targeted him. The boss monster got his arms. He tried struggling to remove the webs, but they were just too strong. The next thing he knew, his arms were broken instantly. Their team started to panic. The leader knew that physical attacks wouldn't work against these webs, so he ordered this lady to use her flames. She cast her spell, and she was able to hit the monster. The archer also started rescuing their teammate because he might also get caught in the fire. But before he could even get near them, the fire grew even stronger. Then they saw multiple legs coming out from the fire. The girl monster had just grown multiple limbs. She was now more like a spider. The team started to panic as they had never seen anything like this before. While this guy was screaming, a foot landed on his chest. It was the boss monster's attack. The archer was ready to avenge his friend, but he was stopped by RMC. Q warned him that if he recklessly fought this monster, he would end up like his friend. Their leader backed up what Q said. This monster's power was out of their league. He intended to hold this monster off until the portal opened up again, but he found out that it would take another 3 hours before they could use it. He knew they couldn't hold this fight for that long. The monster also started its move. It used its web again, and this time, it caught the leader's arms. The archer tried to help, but his attacks were useless. After that, the monster attacked him as well. The monster then pulled the archer toward her direction. Its ferocious teeth appeared. The archer was not able to do anything about it. The monster got her early lunch. This incident made their leader furious. He then mustered his strength and slashed at the monster's webs, but his blade was stopped. This level 4 monster was just too strong. His attacks, as a level 3 swordsman, were treated as nothing. The monster then got his hands again, and now he was the one being pulled. Q then shouted for him to give him his sword. He told the leader that if he wanted to live, he would have to let Q cut his hand. He knew he had no other choice. The leader threw his sword toward Q. RMC didn't hesitate to cut off his arm, as this was the only thing that could save the old man. The leader screamed in pain. After that, Q helped him create some distance from the monster. Zishi then used her skills to heal her leader. Meanwhile, this lady was already in a state of panic. She then ran away because she didn't want to die. Zishi asked Q why he was not doing the same. RMC told her that the monster was just letting its prey run because it made them tastier. The monster wanted them to feel fear first before killing them. These kinds of monsters were called God-chosen beasts. They fed on humans' negative emotions like fear, jealousy, and resentment. Q further explained this to Zishi. These monsters were blessed by the outer gods. That's why they became more powerful than normal monsters. RMC knew about this because he had already defeated hundreds of these monsters in his past identity. But he never expected that the system would send him into a realm that already had this kind of monster. The God-chosen beast started to do something weird again. It released a poisonous gas that spread throughout the place. Luckily, Zishi was there, and she had a skill that could repel the poison. Meanwhile, this lady was now in trouble. She had run away, and she was already out of range from Zishi's skill. She inhaled the poison and immediately went unconscious. But since Zishi was just a level 2 healer, she wasn't able to withstand the pressure of the poison gas. The monster was starting to get happy, but then it noticed something Q was already missing from his position. He told the monster that even though his powers were gone, his spirit and soul were still at level 14. That made him withstand the poison gas. RMC also acquired a skill while he was fighting in this realm. He activated his skill, and his appearance started to change. RMC had just transformed into his new form, a monster. He told the monster that it should be proud because it would witness his new strength. The monster released more concentrated poison gas toward Q, but RMC was already taking his position to dash toward the monster. In a split second, he vanished. The monster had no time to react. It received significant damage from Q. RMC got one of its legs. He even teased it because the legs were quite good. The monster tried counterattacking, but it was no use. The power gap between them was just too wide. Q was even disappointed because he expected more from it. But since he needed to end this quickly, RMC continued his attacks. As expected, the God-chosen beast was overwhelmed. It now had only one leg to stand on. RMC really started to make fun of his prey. The monster knew that it had no chance of winning against Q. That's why it started running away. But then, its other leg was cut off again. The monster fell down. She looked more like an octopus now. Ayaki, as it tried to crawl away, was stopped by Q. This is the new form of humanity's greatest hero, now a monster that could devour all the other monsters in the world. And just like that, our MC ended his fight. The system then congratulated him for clearing the quest. He also got a spider foot as a reward, and he would be transported back to the real world now. 2 hours later, after the incident, Zishi was now wandering the streets. She still couldn't believe what happened inside that realm. When they woke up, they were already out of the secret realm. The leader was also rushed to the hospital. The other lady was not injured, but Zishi was worried about Q because she didn't see him after that. As she searched for RMC, she eventually saw him in front of a building. As for RMC, the system transported him to D-City, and right now, he was looking for a place to live in. But the rental cost for one room was already over $3,000 Union dollars per month. Since these things were given to him for free in his past identity as a hero, he didn't have anything for himself right now. He didn't even have money. As he was thinking about how difficult life would be for him now, Zishi shouted his name. Q remembered this girl as the healer from the secret realm. She got a little disappointed because Q didn't remember her name. She then told him her name again. This girl's name was Yin Zishi. Aside from that, she was happy to see Q safe and sound. She then noticed that Q was looking at the rent rates for this building. She found out that Q didn't have a place to settle, and since he also didn't have any relatives in this city, Zishi started talking about the history of the city. This place was established 40 years ago after the disaster. With rapid development around the area, it became an urban village in no time. Zishi made Q follow her, and she showed him her house. This girl just adopted our MC. Her house was big enough to have a separate room for Q. Q then saw something on Zishi's gate. She told him that it was a medal that her father received when he retired as a hero. Her father was a level 5 male, a professional, and he took part in a lot of battles. Zishi told Q that her father even had the opportunity to fight alongside Mask, although she wasn't sure if this was true because her father often told this story when he was drunk. Q then asked her about her father. It turned out her father was already gone. The war had taken its toll on his body. Even if all the wounds from the battles had been healed, her father lost too much vitality. He passed away not long after he retired. RMC then asked about her mother. She had already passed away as well when she gave birth to Zishi's sister. Q became speechless after hearing this. But then Zishi told him that he didn't need to have that expression because this all happened a long time ago, and she was doing well now. She then invited Q inside the house. She would even give Q some clothes to get him started. This girl then pointed out the room that Q could use. This was a spare room, and he could live in it. Q thought that compared to his past identity, always being on the front lines, this life was better. He would also make sure to repay her kindness once he started earning from the secret realms. Secret realms. And then someone came. It was a girl in a wheelchair, and she was asking who Q was. This girl was Kayan Lee, and she was Zishi's younger sister. Zishi also explained Q's situation to her. She introduced Q as her companion in the secret realms. But this girl didn't like her older sister bringing someone she just met to their house. Kayan Lee then went away. Zishi apologized on behalf of her sister to Q. She told him that her sister gets agitated whenever she sees strangers. Also, this was the day that Mask went to trial. Kayan Lee was a big fan of Mask. Q didn't expect that he would have many fans in the past. Meanwhile, Kayan Lee was back in front of her computer. This girl was busy being a keyboard warrior against all the bashers of Mask. She continued to type her rebuttals toward these trolls. Then, Zishi shouted that it was time for them to eat. But this girl was really dedicated to her mission. She didn't want to eat, even if they had a guest waiting for her. She also told her sister that she didn't need to welcome Q. Eventually, Zishi gave up. She then apologized to Q again because their food was too simple. But in Q's perspective, these foods were already good. He remembered the times he was forced to eat monster meat without any seasoning. He had to endure all of those moments in his past life. At that time, he had the mindset of a hero. He was willing to endure all hardships as long as he could bring peace to the world. As they were eating, the news about Mask's trial was broadcasted. Two hosts were talking about what happened in the trial. One of them said that there was a hypothesis about Mask's disappearance. People on the internet said that Mask only pretended to give up his powers. After all, he just disappeared after the trial. The other host was more concerned about the fact that the greatest hero of mankind was gone. He was wondering if they would all be fine if they experienced a disaster again. This guy was obviously against Mask. He was being biased in his statements. He said that he was sure that mankind would withstand any disaster. He emphasized that even without Mask, the world would still move forward. Zishi was still concerned about the verdict on Mask's trial. She was about to ask Q's perspective on the matter, but she got distracted because Q was eating so fast. It was already his fourth bowl. This guy was just busy eating and enjoying his food. But Zishi continued to tell him her thoughts about the trial. She still thought that Mask had his reasons behind his actions. Q half-heartedly responded to Zishi's thoughts. She realized that Q didn't really care about Mask at all. If only she knew that this guy was Mask. She thought that if her sister saw this news about their idol, she would have already smacked the TV down. Suddenly, they heard some loud noises outside. These shouting people introduced themselves as representatives of Kai Jiang Investment Company. They kept knocking aggressively, and they even threatened to burn the house down if someone didn't open the door. Zishi quickly ran towards the door. She opened it, and these guys greeted her. She then told them that her decision not to sell the house to their company was final. But then, One of them explained her situation to her. She had just lost her party because of the secret realm they raided. Now, she had no source of income. Zishi was confused about how these thugs knew what happened inside the realm. This guy then told her that their company had some connections to the government, and it was easy to get information about them. He knew that eventually, Zishi would have no other choice but to accept their offer. He also gave her 5 days to consider it. If she didn't cooperate after that, things would get troublesome for her. He offered her $1,100,000 federal dollars in exchange for her house. Zishi got confused again because the offer before was $3 million. Although she had no intention of selling this property, it still didn't make any sense. This guy was really taking advantage of the situation. He was forcing her to take his offer immediately. He even brought up her sister's medical bills to pressure her. Kay and Lee needed treatment, and it would cost a lot of money. Right now, Zishi only had less than $30,000 in her bank account. Q then came out, and this guy noticed him. He then greeted Q as he thought that he was Zix's boyfriend. He tried to offer a handshake with Q. He even introduced himself to him. This guy's name was Tujin Kenzo, and he was the chief of the security department. RMC accepted the gesture, but before they could shake hands, Zishi warned Q about Kenzo's abilities. However, it was already too late. This guy specialized in mental strikes, and he planned to use them. He used his power against RMC. Kenzo entered Q's mental world, and he was about to launch his attack. Here, he was even thinking of just giving Q a minor concussion because he'd been in a good mood lately. But then, this guy started to get confused. He'd been trying to reach Q's consciousness for a while now. And then he noticed something. This wide world was Kay's mental world. He was now in panic because this was the first time he had encountered such a powerful mental power. Kenzo knew that he needed to flee as fast as he could, but he was stopped by these huge waves. The waves got him. He thought that Q was on a whole different level. This guy was about to get devoured by Q's mental power. RMC didn't have to do anything. Kenzo also saw this while he was being submerged by Kay's consciousness. He screamed because he had just seen the true monster. Back in the real world, Kenzo went out cold. Zishi didn't know what was happening. The other bodyguards were about to attack Q because their leader had just fallen unconscious, but they were stopped by another person in charge. This guy knew that Q was too strong for them to handle. He thought that Q might be a level 3 professional, based on how he had handled Kenzo. As he was trying to help his boss, this guy told Zishi that their affairs were far from over. They even had the nerve to say that if someone caused problems with their people, things would not be easy, even though they were the ones who had started this. After they left, Zishi asked Q if he really did that to Kenzo. Q told her that it was Kenzo's fault for trying to get inside his mental world. RMC hadn't even intended to do that to him. Q then found out that the Kai Company had been harassing them for 4 years now. They really wanted to buy their house, even though Zishi had already told them that they would not sell it. They continued to disturb them. They even threatened her sister whenever she wasn't present. This only stopped when their leader came to the rescue, but now that this kind man was in the hospital, she was sure they would come after them again. Q then asked her about the preferential treatment they should be getting from the government, as he had passed this bill when he was still a hero. It was then revealed that Zix's family hadn't received any such thing. The government was also backing these shark companies. This was the only time that Q found out that his policies, when he was still a hero, were not being enforced properly. After that incident, Q helped Zishi wash the dishes. This was the only way he could help them for now. Zishi told him that she was already grateful because Kay had driven those thugs away. She then asked him about his plans regarding the secret realms and whether Q would join other parties. It was the same case for Zishi. If her leader didn't wake up soon, she would be forced to join other parties. But joining other parties nowadays was kind of risky. Some parties even backstab their members just to gain more loot. Mask had already enforced a policy prohibiting professionals from killing each other, but once inside the realm, no one could really tell what was happening. She told Q that if she was able to find some reliable parties, she would surely recommend Q to them. Q agreed to her suggestion, but deep inside, our MC knew that ever since he chose the monster path, joining other professionals would be impossible. He also knew that no one in their right mind would fight alongside a monster like him. While he was finishing up cleaning the dishes, the system notified him again. It was a level 4 secret realm mission, but the main requirement was that Q needed to clear it alone. He only had 12 hours to prepare for this. After some time, a portal appeared in the secret realm. Q came out from the portal. This was the secret realm he needed to clear alone. He also thanked the system because he was able to enter and exit the realms without requiring official requests from a government. RMC noticed that this realm's design was like Europe's Middle Ages. He also noticed these huge Garo statues. As soon as he locked eyes with these statues, the stones started to crack. Not long after, the stone Garos turned into scarlet gargoyle monsters. He then started to analyze the characteristics of these monsters. He thought that if Zix's team encountered these monsters, there would be a lot of casualties. The gargoyles didn't waste any more time and charged at Q, but they were stopped in their tracks with Q's hands. Our MC used his monster form again, and now he felt pity for these monsters because they were about to get wrecked by the true monster. And just like that, our MC eliminated 2 gargoyles. Q continued to wander around this realm, and he then saw a whole bunch of gargoyles again. He even challenged them to charge at him all at once. The monsters started to fly and surround Q. Our MC did the superhero landing pose, but this time, he was going to do something different. Q jumped up as well, and then, one by one, he defeated these gargoyles with a single strike. After a while, our MC continued being a one-punch man, ripping the gargoyles' wings apart. Even the stone monsters were able to feel fear when they fought Q. After defeating the last gargoyle, something came down. It was the leader of the monsters. It was called Lux Stone Statue. Q made a comment about how this one looked more like a human, and because of that, Q wanted to kill it even more. After that, the 2 dashed toward each other. The room was then filled with silence. After a while, someone opened the door. These professionals came in, ready to fight, but all they found was a pile of rubble in an empty room. One guy was confused because they had been told they were the first team to enter this dungeon. The entrance had also been closed when they entered this place, so it was odd that someone had gotten in before them. A lady started looking around and found one of the gargoyles' bodies. She told her leader that whoever did this was indeed a monster. The damage wasn't from sharp sword, judging by its uneven texture. That meant this was done by ripping the body apart. This idea alone was enough to send chills down their spines. Using bare hands in this fight was just too much and nearly impossible. Then this guy saw something that could prove this really happened. A body was pinned to one of the pillars in the room. It was the leader of the monsters, and Q had used its own spear against it. Meanwhile, at the Secret Realm Inspection Bureau office in the city, the staff were overwhelmed with complaints. The boss was furious because a growing number of people were reporting that the dungeons they were supposed to clear had already been completed by someone else. Currently, there were already 7 reports, and this couldn't keep happening. It meant they were neglecting their duty as officers. However, this guy thought that it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Secret realms were supposed to be cleared sooner or later. The boss, however, got even angrier because this guy didn't see the bigger picture. Secret realms were indeed opted to be cleared, but not by those who evade security. This also compromises the safety of the professionals inside the dungeon. If that unregistered person only kills monsters inside, then there's no problem. But what if his main purpose was to ambush the professionals? This would create a huge uproar in the hero community. The boss then told his team that, back in his day, most of the heroes who entered the dungeon were not killed by monsters. They were betrayed by their companions to gain more power and money. He also started to analyze the situation. It all started with the dungeon, where the gels were ripped apart. According to the reports, the infiltrator should be at least at the level of 4 to 5 professionals to do such a thing. They also ruled out the possibility that this was done by a group of professionals because the way the monsters were defeated showed only one pattern. With this information, the boss concluded that the person behind this would also try to sell the loot he got at the market. He then tasked his team to check the markets around the city and find those selling the same loot that could be obtained from the infiltrated dungeons. Meanwhile, at the professional trading market in Dew City, a shopkeeper was glad to have business with someone. It was Q. He had indeed sold the loot drops to these shops and got a decent amount of money. He didn't really care about the price he was selling for, as this was just a bonus for clearing his quests. But with this money, Q could now help Zai and also pay his rent. Then, he heard a familiar voice nearby. It was Zishi. She was trying to sell an item to the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper was trying to haggle her into selling her antique sword for a much cheaper price. He told her that, since it was too old, it was only worth scrap. This blade belonged to her father and was the only treasure she had left of him. She was sad that it was now considered just a scrap item. The shopkeeper, seeing her pitiful state, told her that he'd buy it for $3,500. His offer had been $3,300 before. Zishi was already thinking about it. She really didn't want to sell it, but she needed money to pay for her sister's medical expenses. As for the shopkeeper, he was trying to take advantage of the situation because Zishi had no idea what she was selling. A sword like this could only be obtained in high-level secret realms, and it would easily sell for $10,000. He then tried to pressure Zishi into selling the sword immediately, saying he might change his mind. But then, someone spoke up. It was Q. He checked the sword Zishi was holding and knew that it was a level 5 professional longblade. He told Zishi that he wanted this equipment. The shopkeeper shouted at him because Q had just poached his transaction with Zishi. Q then decided to give Zishi the money he had earned from the dungeons. Since this was a lot of money, the shopkeeper conceded. After that, the two decided to sit somewhere in the park. Now, Q had the sword in his hand. Zishi told him that she could give the sword to him for only $1,500 because he had already helped her a lot. But Q denied her trade offer. He told her that she should take all the money because it was his payment for the accommodation and all the delicious food she had provided. Q insisted that she take the money. He also told her that the blade was not as simple as she thought. The value of the sword easily exceeded $110,000. Zishi then commented that the blade really suited him because they were both full of secrets. She had been thinking about the mysterious things surrounding Q. This guy had been able to escape the secret realm they were in last time, and now he had gained so much money in such a short period of time. But she made sure that she wouldn't meddle with Q's actions. She just hoped that Q would be nice enough to really take care of her father's treasure. The sword's name was Flying Crow. Q thought it was a great name for a sword. It was like a dangerous crow lurking in the dark, waiting for its chance to attack. Zishi also told Q that she really didn't want to sell the sword, but she had no other choice. She shared the tragedy that had struck her younger sister. The kennel was a prison in the city when the Great Ghost incident happened. The Great Ghost was a level 10 monster that caused trouble in D-City. The government army and professionals sacrificed many lives just to defeat the monster. Her father was killed in the incident, and the only thing recovered from the tragedy was his sword, Flying Crow. The most deadly thing about the incident was the radiation emitted throughout the city. The sky even turned green that day. Kiana was also struck by the radiation, and her feet were severely affected. She was on the edge of the radiation zone. Zishi also shared that Kiana was a genius in swordsmanship. She could have easily become a level 5 swordsman or higher. But everything changed after the accident. Now, she needed constant treatment from high-level healers just to prevent the radiation from spreading throughout her body. Zishi was also forced to give up her close combat career because she needed a more survival-oriented job. Q remembered the incident well. He was the one who had defeated the Great Ghost with just one punch. But he had been deployed 10 hours late. He hadn't expected that. In such a short period of time, the incident had changed so many lives. Q was reminded of why he hated monsters so much. He also recalled that Mask had made a deal with the federal government to assist all the affected families from the incident. But Zishi didn't know about it at all. After sharing this burden with Q, she felt much better. She told Q that they should head back home now. She would also cook him some delicious food. They went on their way. Q happened to pass by two men who were looking for the loot drops from the infiltrated dungeons. They were sure the loot would be sold in the professional market in no time. Meanwhile, at Zishi's house, Kinnell was still busy fighting off internet trolls. Then, she heard loud knocks on the door. She thought it wasn't her sister because the knocks were too aggressive. Then, She remembered the guys from the Kai Investment Company. The knocks kept getting stronger. Kinnell saw her wooden stick and grabbed it. She made her way toward the door, and then the guy managed to open it with a kick. The man proceeded to enter the house and greeted Kinnell. This annoyed her, and she tried swinging her stick, but she couldn't land a strike. She also fell down. The guy then stepped on her weapon. He knew that Kinnell couldn't do anything to him because she couldn't even reach him. The boss then ordered his men to search for Zishi and the guy who had hurt Kinnell last time. The thugs started flipping and destroying everything inside the house. Then, the lackeys reported that they couldn't find Zishi or Q. The boss decided that they would just take Kinnell with them since they couldn't go back empty-handed. One of the men hesitated, saying that this was not a good idea because they could be charged with kidnapping. The boss praised the guy and gave him a special task instead. He handed him the keys to a truck and ordered him that, as soon as Zishi and her boyfriend arrived, he should drive the truck into Zishi's yard. The boss planned to dump garbage in their yard and file it as a minor accident. The men liked the idea, and they all laughed. After some time, rain started pouring down. Zishi and Q were still running toward their house, but then Zishi saw something. She saw her younger sister still on the ground. Sil was just left there in her pitiful state. Zishi quickly ran toward her sister to help her and kindly told them what had happened. She said that it was the Kai Jiang Investment Company. Q then assisted KLY in going back into the house, but then they heard a loud crash. It was a truck, and it had really crashed into their yard, dumping all the garbage in front of them. Zishi held her ground. She already knew who did this. The guy even tried to tease them, saying that this was just an accident. He also told Zishi that she should clean it up since she was already standing in front of it. Kyla then tried to console her sister, but Q stopped her. He told her to let her sister be alone, saying that it would only make her sister sadder if she insisted. Zishi then went inside their house with her head held high, but she didn't say a single word to them. After that, Q and Sil were left outside the house. They then asked Q why these kinds of things were happening to them. She wondered if there was really justice in this world. Q told her that there never was. Lee then proceeded to ask for even a bit of hope or fairness in their society. NRMC told her the truth. These things really don't exist. He said that even the rain falls equally on everyone. Q held his sword and told her that rain falls on both those who suffer and those who are unrighteous. He further told her that the world was truly unjust, and even this simple rain was proof of that. RMC was clearly annoyed by what had happened. He destroyed Senel's wooden sword with just his grip. Senel was unable to contain her feelings and started crying. Q told her that her family's problems were too small compared to the problems of the world, and that he couldn't really be bothered with their affairs. But since trouble always seemed to follow him, he opted to do something about it. Kinlo asked him where he was going. Q told her that he was going to kill those people. The girl panicked upon hearing his response, thinking that Q couldn't possibly win against them. The company had fighters that were level 3 to 4. She also reminded him that their problems were too minor to be bothered with. RMC agreed that this was indeed a minor problem. In fact, it bored him. But the truth was, he was fond of doing boring things like this, especially when these problems could be solved with violence. That day, it was a rainy afternoon. Q was already in front of the building, ready to attack. Inside, the establishment offered a luxurious experience. It was also filled with strong bodyguards in case someone caused trouble. Q entered the building, immediately alerting the guards. But instead of being scared, they looked like they wanted trouble. 2 of them approached Q and told him to put away his weapon, but our MC didn't stop walking. It felt like something had already happened in a split second. The 2 guards had already been slashed, reduced to nothing but dust. At that moment, Q received a new mission from the system. It required him to use Flying Crow to kill all hostile beings in the building. As for the reward, his sword would receive an upgrade. More guards were deployed to stop Q as he continued walking toward them. One of the guards warned his companions to be careful. They surrounded Q and launched their attack. With a swift motion, RMC already got them. One of the guards was just about to strike, but Q had already sensed his aura. Q used his sword, slashing at the man's arms before targeting his body. However, Flying Crow was already dull, and the blade got stuck. The others noticed this and prepared to take advantage of it. Q yanked his sword free and, instead of relying on it, decided to use his fists. This caught the enemy off guard. They knew Q was a weapon user, but his physical strength was greater than that of most martial artists. After that, Q picked up his sword again and continued his mission to eliminate these men. Meanwhile, in an office, the man who had gone to Zishi's house was just relaxing. He thought that eventually, the two sisters would sell their property to them. They were already anticipating large profits if they could redevelop the place. But then, one of his subordinates barged in, panicked. "Someone is killing all the guards," he shouted, "and that man is already on his way here." "It's only one intruder?" the boss questioned. "But he's already managed to kill most of the guards?" He started wondering who they had messed with. They always made sure not to get involved with high-level professionals or people with great influence. He ordered his men to check out what was happening. They armed themselves and headed out. Then they saw something horrifying. Someone was on the stairs, begging for his life. But he was met with a dark slash. Then, Q emerged from the stairs. Stairs. The boss was immediately intimidated by the aura of our MC. Still, he tried to act tough. "We're all high-level professionals. We can't be scared of just one guy," he declared. 3 of them stepped forward, wielding their weapons. Since they were level 4 professionals, they demanded that Q surrender. One of them suddenly recognized him. "Boss, he's the one who put Kenzo in a coma. He was at Zishi's house when we went there last time." Q thought to himself that facing 3 level 4 professionals would be tough if he only used his human form. Then, he destroyed the light switches in the hallway, plunging the area into darkness. His opponents assumed he was trying to take them out in the dark. One of them smirked. "Darkness doesn't bother me," he said. "I have night vision." He activated his skill, adjusting his vision. But then he saw something strange. The man they had been facing earlier was gone. In his place, a monster now stood. The ominous aura around them thickened. The man saw Q move, but it was already too late. Flying Crow had devoured him. The boss called out his subordinate's name, but all he got in response was the stench of blood. A lightning bolt struck near the building, briefly illuminating the scene. The boss saw it clearly now. Q was drenched in blood, ready to strike again. One of the remaining men barely managed to block Q's attack. He knew that if he had reacted just a little slower, he would already be dead. The blonde professional used his ice skill and cast an ice arrow. But Q had already seen through his attack. Our MC blocked the powerful projectile with just one hand and crushed it in his grip. Then, he turned his gaze toward the attacker. Blood splattered everywhere. Their leader heard it, the sickening sound of flesh being torn apart. Q was already holding a severed head. Before their leader could even speak, his own head was cut off. The greatest hero of humanity had clearly taken the monster's path. Flying Crow was now drenched in blood. The reinforcements who had come to help their boss were now terrified for their lives. They hadn't expected to meet a monster today. Q suddenly vanished from their sight. The next thing they knew, the monster was already standing in front of them. A few seconds later, Q had already taken care of them. Then a voice rang out. "Stop!" Q turned to see a man. Our MC knew that this one was different. This was a level 6 professional. The professional observed him carefully. "You're in between a human and a demon," he said. "That makes you a very rare monster." Now, he planned to hunt Q down to make up for all the losses he had suffered today. Then he vanished. A second later, he reappeared, aiming for Q's head. Q was able to dodge it, but he still got grazed. This professional was already impressed because Q managed to dodge his attack. He praised Q's reaction speed, but that initial attack was just to check Q's capabilities. Since he already got the information he needed, he continued to attack Q. This guy was really powerful. He managed to land some slashes throughout Q. He was already enjoying this because his opponent was quite tough. But then, he knew that for his next move, this monster was done for. This guy lunged towards Q. RMC dodged it easily, but this was just a trap. This guy just took out a gun against a monster. He clicked it, and he managed to land a clean hit on Q. He was quite satisfied because this technique never missed a shot. All of the monsters he used this with were all blown to pieces. He's now thinking that he could still sell this monster for a high price. But as the dust settled, Q's head was still intact. This professional couldn't believe that a monster managed to withstand that attack. He's now wondering how this monster survived his attack. Q spoke and told him the name of the technique that this guy used against him. It's called 19 Rapier Style. Q praised this guy for mastering this technique to this extent. RMC knew this technique because he was the one who invented it. He specifically designed this technique for rapier users. But since this was created by Q, he knew how to counter it. He also said that this technique was meant to be used for the righteous, and this guy had been using it for the wrong cause. The guy didn't understand Q's remarks because, in his perspective, he used it to take down a monster. Q explained the situation to this professional. He told him about the families whose lives were ruined because of this investment company. This professional responded that he didn't really care about them at all because the world would still turn even if those people were left in ruins. That was the principle this guy believed in. He then continued his quest to take down Q, and because of his twisted principles, Q decided what to do. RMC suddenly grew claw-like things behind his back. The level 6 professional didn't expect this weapon from Q, but he still dodged it. As for the next attack, it was just too fast to react to. This was the only chance Kane needed. A barrage of attacks was then released toward this guy. After a few more seconds, this was him now. This guy asked Q one last question. He asked what kind of monster Q was. RMC drew his sword once again as he answered his question. He told him that Q had already established his identity a while ago. And just like that, Flying Crow was drenched in blood again. Q noticed that it then started glowing. Flying Crow had just evolved into its new form, called Blood Raven. This weapon's ability was its unlimited growth potential. Its appearance didn't change at all, but RMC knew that something within it was different. It felt like his weapon even had its own heartbeat now. He thought that this was truly a perfect weapon for him, because both of them had unlimited room for improvement. After that, Q noticed another guy who was already scared to death. He tried begging Q not to kill him, but RMC was now a monster. Unlike being a hero, his morals were now different. He then gave this treat to his newly evolved weapon, Blood Raven. The slash from the sword was enough to devour this guy. It even destroyed the building, and its power was seen from the outside. As this chaos was happening inside the building, a special task force was already in position. An officer reported that they had already surrounded the area. Someone had managed to report this mess to them, and now they had come to arrest the infiltrator. The one in charge of this operation told his troops not to attack first. They would wait and hope that the suspect would negotiate with them. This old man knew that all of the people killed inside this building were not innocent. They were the ones that had ruined thousands of lives. But he still needed to do his job. As they waited outside, one officer saw someone coming out of the building. It was RMC, and his clothes were covered in blood. Meanwhile, Zishi had just finished taking a bath, and she had just found out that Q had made his way to Kai Jiang Investment Company. This girl quickly grabbed her umbrella as she rushed to stop Q. As she walked toward the building, she saw the army of policemen surrounding the area. She was stopped by one of the officers, who asked if she was Zishi. He told her that she was needed for an ongoing investigation. The officer then showed Zishi a picture of Q. She told him that she knew Q and asked what had happened to him, and if he was still alive. The officer told her that not only was Q alive, but he was also in good health. He was currently being held in the City Defense Army exclusive prison. An old man had been observing our MC's behavior for a while now. This guy reported that Q had already confessed to attacking Kai Investment Company, but the only information they got after that was his name. Other than that, they knew nothing about him. It was as if he had just appeared out of nowhere. There were also no government files related to him. The only person he was linked to was Zishi. They asked this girl, and they found out that these two had met inside the secret realm. They then connected his identity to the mysterious infiltrator of the secret realms. The old man really found Q mysterious. He then asked about Zishi's identity. He found out that Zishi was just a level 2 healer and that her father had served in the military as a level 5 professional. It was also reported to him that Zishi's sister was caught in the disaster that had hit Du City a long time ago. This girl revealed to them how she met Q. She told them that her party was about to conquer a secret realm, but then Q appeared from the portal. Her statement was also consistent with the other party members who survived the realm. This commander also found out that Q had attacked Kai Jiang Investment Company because they had been harassing Zishi's family into selling their property. After this, the director entered the room. He told the commander that it was now time to talk to Q personally. Commander Jiang was a level 7 professional, and the director was at level 6. These two were considered the strongest in Da City. The door to Q's room opened. The commander immediately saw Q's look, but then he noticed that RMC was not looking at him. He was looking at the badges on his cloak. The commander then sat down and started his interview. He told Q about the consequences of the crime he had just committed. Q could be sentenced to death, or he could be enlisted into the battalion's front lines to atone for his sins. Q would only get his freedom back after serving and surviving these battles on the battlefield. But as far as anyone knew, this was just like serving someone a death sentence. No one had ever survived the front lines. As for RMC, fighting monsters on the front lines was not really a punishment. He had been doing this all his life, and in his past identity, he had been a hero. The commander noticed something about Q's statement. He asked Q if he had experience being on the front lines. Q answered yes. The director and the commander exchanged looks. They knew there was truly something mysterious about Q. If what he was saying was true, they should have already known his identity. After all, only a few people could survive that situation. The commander then told Q that the director and he had also been on the front lines. The commander had served on the front lines for 10 years, and the director was considered a veteran in this field. The only ones who had served longer than them were Mask and the first group of heroes. The commander even showed Q his mask medal as proof. Since Q knew the feeling of fighting on the front lines, he should have known that he should not have committed this crime in the first place. These kinds of situations could easily crumble the peace that they had been establishing for decades. Q had also been entering the secret realms without any government notice. This was a huge deal because it could destroy their security's image. But despite all these explanations, Q kept quiet. He didn't say a single word to these two. The commander then told him that, since he was being uncooperative, they couldn't do him any favors now. However, this old man still hoped that Q would eventually cooperate with them because, once he was transferred to the federal capital prison, the officers there would not give him this treatment anymore. Q knew about the federal capital, and he thought that he would like to visit that place again. But right now it was impossible. RMC had just received a new mission. It was about the Great Ghost's reincarnation. It had been a few years since that disaster struck D City, and the Great Ghost had not been completely defeated. Now it threatened to reincarnate from the bodies affected by the radiation blast it had created last time. RMC's main mission was to defeat the new calamity that was about to be born again, and his reward was its core. This core was a form of the Great Ghost, also known as the Great Obscenity. This monster was at the calamity level, meaning its powers were as strong as those of level 7 to 13 professionals. Q already knew about the upcoming revival of this monster way back when he had first defeated it. That's why he had told the government back then to monitor all the people who were affected by its radiation. Q had really worked hard back then, and all he had wanted was to maintain peace throughout the world. He had been transferred to different places just to save them from calamities. But that day, when he had saved the people in D City, all he received was verbal harassment. He had arrived 10 minutes late, and that was enough for the people to hate him. They called him names and accused him of being ungrateful to those who had put him in that position. This was the ugly truth about humanity. Yet, every single time Q faced all the hate, he still asked for forgiveness. This time, it was different. He didn't need to be a hero anymore. Mankind was just too much. Q thought that it didn't really matter anymore if people lived or not. He didn't care anymore. Meanwhile, these two were still wondering if Q had really experienced being on the front lines. But the old man told them that in all of his experience, he had never seen anyone with that kind of strength. Commander Jiang knew this because of the way Q had killed those people in the building. He knew that Q was an expert in all combat techniques. It was as if he had cultivated multiple classes all at once. The director then asked the commander if Q was one of the geniuses of their lifetime. There were very few people who could achieve that kind of strength. The old man then told him that Q might be a genius, but he was also a fool, to sacrifice his freedom just to go after Kai Jiang Investment Company. They were not worth it. Q's judgment was up to the Federation again, the same people who were behind mass trial. This was the federal government capital, called Star City. It had been built after humanity had survived the Dark Ages. This city was considered the symbol of humanity's revival, and right now, it had reached a futuristic science fiction-like state. At one of the offices in this city, the congressmen were panicking and arguing about something. It was How again. He was looking at the report handed to him, Q's crime report. He thought that this young man truly had talent, but he still wanted to punish Q for his actions. He claimed that Q could become a greater danger to society. But the real reason How wanted Q punished was that Kai Jiang Company was one of his cash cows in D-City. He needed to do this to show his power to the other companies under his protection. How then decided to send Q to the monster retreat and throw him into the front lines. But even that wasn't enough for him. He still wasn't satisfied with the verdict. He wanted Q to be executed in public. He was worried that his lackeys would turn their backs on him. But then, he suddenly changed the topic of the meeting. He was annoyed. No one had been able to locate Mask since his disappearance after the trial. The room suddenly went silent. It was modern times. Someone should have been able to locate him and report it immediately to news outlets or the authorities. Yet, there was still nothing about Mask. Little did How know that Mask was already in front of him, but under a different identity. The other congressmen inside the room were trying to calm their leader down. They told him that Mask had no more powers now. And that was exactly How's point. If that were true, then Mask shouldn't have been able to disappear instantly from the courtroom. This guy then speculated that maybe it was just a trick using the last remnants of his power. That was also the propaganda they had been feeding the people for the past few days, and it had significantly decreased Mask's supporters. How calmed down as he assessed the situation. Right now, he was the most powerful man in the Federation. After that, he still insisted that they needed to find Mask, just for their peace of mind. The next topic they needed to address was the increase in monster activity on the front lines. This month alone, there had been a 32% increase. How realized the importance of Mask in these kinds of situations. Without him, they would have a hard time killing the monsters. One of the congressmen then asked if they had gone too far with their verdict in Mask's trial. That question ticked How off. It felt like someone was questioning their collective decision. How then proceeded to vent his frustration. He asked these congressmen if they truly thought that humanity wouldn't survive without Mask. And to address the current problem, he ordered a reduction of troops stationed in each city to reinforce the front lines. Someone objected, saying that this was a terrible idea. The troops in each city were deployed there in case a calamity emerged. If they went through with this redeployment, the affected places would be left vulnerable. But another congressman accused him of being against the move simply because he was in charge of supplying weapons to the guards. And thus, their argument began. None of them, however, could oppose How's decision. It was final. There had been no major calamity in these cities for years, and he was confident they could manage. Now, as for Q, How wanted him to be sent to the capital, to the city defense force building. Meanwhile, Zishi was done cooperating with these officers. She had done so in an attempt to save Q, but there was really nothing she could do. However, Chanla couldn't accept this situation. Q was charged with a major crime, and these sisters would serve as the key witnesses in his trial. Chanla told a female officer that this was unjust. Q had only punished those who were considered the scum of the earth. She then explained that, even if that were the case, killing was still considered wrong. The little girl exclaimed that those who had been killed weren't even good citizens. Those men had destroyed thousands of lives. Commander Jiang, overhearing their conversation, stepped in. He told Chanlu that she was right about those guys, but even if they deserved what had happened to them, Q still had no right to take matters into his own hands. Chanlu then asked him why the government didn't act when they already knew that these kinds of things were happening. This old man told her that sometimes there's darkness that can't be dispelled by light, and that there will always be a need for sacrifices. Chan Lu implied that it's not that they chose not to dispel darkness. It's just that they cannot. Commander Jiang told her that her personal rebellion was unjust, and she couldn't accept this statement. She shouted that the very existence of this world was a mistake. Zishi could only stare at her sister. At that moment, they decided that they should just go home. After that, Commander Jiang thought that if only Chan Lu could stand, she could then use her resentment to exterminate the monsters in this world. After some time, they arrived at their home. Zishi left Chan Lu alone as she still needed to clean their yard. Zishi would also try to find some solutions to help, but this girl had something else in her mind. She still couldn't accept how the real world works. She decided that if there were places that light couldn't reach, she would be the beacon of this said light. Chan Lu managed to stand up once again. She was also able to take a few steps. Meanwhile, Zishi was still busy cleaning up, and then she saw her sister. This shocked Zishi because her sister had stood up, but something seemed off. Vines started to come out from Chan Li's arms, and she asked her sister to start running. Meanwhile, at the headquarters of the security department, these guys were arguing because the notice on reducing their police force had just come in. Commander Jiang personally set this meeting to tell them and ask for their ideas. But then he felt something. Commander Jiang was familiar with this aura that he had just felt. He was sure that this aura was from the Great Ghost. These officers began to panic. They even asked their commander if he was not wrong. They thought that this calamity was defeated a long time ago. This old man then broke the glass in their office. He ordered his men to immediately evacuate all the people out of the city and activate the emergency military plan. Meanwhile, at the busy streets of D City, things were going as usual. This man even noticed the spring because of the flowers. He thought that spring came too soon. But these flowers started to bloom not because of spring. These plants released their pollen into the air. This bee got attracted and was about to land on them. As soon as it touched the flower, it transformed. This guy's friend told him that it was now time to cross the street. But as he turned his head to his friend, something was already wrong. This guy had just grown plants inside his body. His friend shouted, and it alerted everyone near him. And this was the start of the disaster. One by one, people were turning into these plant monsters. This professional then came to the rescue. People started cheering for him. They thought they were now safe. This hero wielded his weapon and let out a huge slash. His attack managed to cut this huge pile of petals. It looked like he had killed the monster, but then his arms turned into vines as well. This monster that they were facing had this infectious pollen. Just by looking at this calamity, they already knew that this was a great obscenity. These officers were already on the move to stop this thing. Some of them even thought that this was not the great obscenity, because instead of the bodies being rotted or disintegrated, they were turning into plants. Commander Jiang then told them that this phenomenon was called human flowers. He also warned his team that they should not underestimate these monsters because they could turn into more dangerous creatures. He ordered them to secure all the streets nearby and make sure that no one else would be infected by this monster. His team quickly went to their respective positions and carried out his order. At this street, people were still running because some of the human flowers were already devouring them. Commander Jiang shouted at them and ordered them to get on the ground. Ground. He took a deep breath and did a fireball jutsu. This old man could use fire magic, and he just used a powerful one. The whole street got caught up in his attack. The human flowers were burnt, but it didn't stop the pollen from infecting other people. Commander Jiang then noticed that this monster really did have the same infection power as the Great Ghost. In just a few hours, D-City was nearly turned into ruins. The whole city was already enveloped with plants. The director even thought that this place was like a green hell. The soldiers were already struggling to keep off the vines. Commander Jiang also told his men to give up using their firepower against these things, as they were not being affected. Even small debris from the body of these human flowers could infect a lot of people. The director then met up with this old man. He then confirmed that this calamity was really the great obscenity. The director was in prison when it attacked the city last time. The only reason that could explain its second coming was immortality. Commander Jiang told the director that there were some monsters that had this trait. But just like those demons were being reborn, this monster would still need a lot of time to regain its full strength. The form that the Great Obscenity used this time was also different from its past form. Last time, it was all about destruction. Now, it was more like saving the planet from humans. The director also remembered something. He remembered that when Mask defeated this monster, he ordered the officials to make sure they could get rid of all the traces of this monster. These officials agreed to Mask's request, but as it turned out, they didn't do their end of the bargain. They even embezzled the money that Mask dedicated to the families of the victims. The director knew that this would not have happened if those officials had done their responsibilities. Commander Jiang told him to just report this to him later because, right now, they had more important things to do. He then asked his team where the strongest fluctuation of energy was coming from. The director already knew what this old man was trying to do. He intended to try and stop the monster all by himself. Commander Jiang told the director that he needed to do this while the monster was still weak. Right now, it hadn't even reached level 9 or 10. This was their only chance to defeat this all-powerful calamity that could wipe out mankind if it reached its peak power. If he delayed this any longer, the damage would also be massive. The director knew that there was nothing he could do to stop his boss. He then told him to just be careful. Meanwhile, at Star City, people started to receive the news about what was happening in D-City. It was immediately broadcasted, and a reporter said that a calamity-level monster had really attacked the city. The current state of the city was also being broadcasted live. Some of the people commenting were already looking for the hero they had betrayed. They were kind of expecting that Mask would appear and save the day. Some of them also posted pictures on social media. After a while, a new development had been reported. There was news that Commander Jiang was already fighting the Great Obscenity. With his command, they were slowly turning the tide against these monsters. This was the feed that was being broadcasted throughout the country. People could see Commander Jiang being chased by these huge vines. But then he suddenly stopped moving. It turned out this old man had reached his destination. He found the main culprit behind this disaster. He quickly recognized the face of this monster. This was the one responsible for all of this, the sister of Zishi, Chanlu. Commander Jiang then told her to stop pretending. She was even using her majestic appearance to make people worship her. In the early days of the fight against monsters, there were also monsters who pretended to be gods. They fooled the people, and they started worshiping these false prophets. The director tried contacting his boss. He told him that the monster in front of him was the reincarnated form of the Great Ghost. Chanlu was already gone. Commander Jiang didn't expect that just a few hours after they met, she would transform into this very disaster. Chanlu asked him if he regretted it, and as for the answer of this old man, it was quite clear. He started gathering his power and shouted that he regretted not killing her at that time. Commander Jiang then made his move. He dashed toward Chanlu with lightning speed and quickly reached the monster. He was able to land a clean hit. The reporters covering this battle were impressed by his powers. They thought that Commander Jiang had defeated the monster with just one attack, but as he turned his head around, he realized that his attack had done nothing. Chanlu started to regenerate. She told Commander Jiang that this was useless. After a few seconds, the monster had completely recovered. The reporters were also shocked. They didn't know what was really happening. The old man continued to attack again. He sent his lightning punches towards Chanlu, and all of them landed. But because of her high-speed regeneration, his attempts were in vain. She asked the commander if this was the sunlight that could dispel darkness, the one he had talked about last time. Commander Jiang suddenly felt the bloodlust around him. He immediately tried to gain some distance between them, but as he was still thinking about the immense danger he felt, he heard a voice behind him. He tried fleeing again, but the moment he stopped, Chanlu was already behind him. The monster then started to make fun of the light that he was so proud of. He couldn't do anything about the power of this monster. He was clearly outclassed. Commander Jiang had nowhere to go because this monster could just teleport its body as long as there were plants around. Swan, the director, then told his boss that he needed to retreat for now. This match was too much, even for him. He suggested that they should just launch a large-scale attack to destroy the whole area, but the commander told him that there was no way he could escape this thing now. Since he had nothing to lose, Commander Jiang took off his cloak. He held his mask badge again and smiled. It reminded him of something. Chanlu praised him because he didn't give up just yet. And by the looks of it, this old man had become more powerful than before. The blue lightning around his body turned red. This was his last desperate move. A huge red lightning bolt then hit his body. The old man was trying to overload his body with elemental attributes to boost his abilities even more. But all the people knew that this technique had its consequences. It could take one's life after using it. Chanlu also knew about this phenomenon, and she praised him again because he had just reached level 8 power with this move. The only downside was that the cells all over his body were being overloaded with energy. Since they still couldn't handle it, his cells were being destroyed eventually. But this old man didn't care about all that anymore. With his improved speed, he dashed towards Chanlu again. She thought this was useless because she could just teleport herself instantly. But before she could even process her thoughts, her body was almost disintegrated. The old man was now faster than her thinking speed. With this, he was also running out of time. The cells in his body were already being destroyed. He was also experiencing a lot of pain in the process. The reporter was now happy again because he thought that Commander Jiang had finally defeated the monster. But this was not true. The energy coming from the Great Ghost had not yet disappeared. Instead, it was steadily growing. The director then informed his men that this monster was not the Great Obscenity. He then told them about a creature named Antaeus. He was from the dark ages of the Greeks, and this creature was said to be invincible as long as the earth stood. He concluded that this creature was Antaeus itself. It had already gotten its powers from the people it absorbed, and as long as someone didn't eliminate it completely, it couldn't be defeated at all. The monster existed in all the vines and plants it had created. She was one, but also 10,000. But his men still didn't understand what their boss was telling them. A new emergency alert was then shown to them. The energy of this monster was rapidly increasing. It even reached the highest red secret realm energy. Chanlu had become a level 9 monster, and she was still growing stronger. Back to the two. Chanlu couldn't believe that humans could reach this kind of power just by sacrificing themselves. Once in her life, she also dreamed of becoming strong enough to protect the weak. She then asked Commander Jiang why he didn't use his power to protect those who were left in the dark. Professionals had left them hanging right when they needed them the most, and it made Chanlu even more furious. This was her constant question to the world. All of the human flowers and the vines around the city then retreated. They were now gathering toward a single point. Chanlu had reached a new form. She was now as tall as the buildings around her. Commander Jiang appeared again and was about to answer her question. With all of his strength in his hands, he told her that it was because of this world. It was a world that made him accept that death was nothing new. With all his might, Commander Jiang attacked using his red lightning. Chanlu thought that she could easily block this attack using one of her hands, but that was not the case. Commander Jiang managed to pass through. People all around the country were watching his battle. They started cheering as soon as they saw that his attack went through. Chanlu was still trying to stop this old man's attack, but after a while, the power that made her somewhat invincible started to fade. It was time for Commander Jiang. She had him in her hands now. She told him that since he had said that being dead and alive were nothing new to this world, he could now go to hell. Commander Jiang had a final look in his eyes, and then he was gone. He was turned into petals that were now being swayed into the air. Chanlu told him that this was what he got for attempting the impossible. The director saw what happened. The energy of his boss had also disappeared. As for those who were watching the live broadcast, they were all shocked. At that moment, they thought about the hero they had once taken for granted. They were looking for Mask. It had been a month since he disappeared, and now they didn't know what to do anymore. Reality had finally hit these people. Some of them now started bashing the ruling of their federal government. The most frequent question that arose again was, where is Mask? Meanwhile, at a prison facility, alarms started to go off. They were alerted about the calamity-level monster that had attacked the city. Q was in this place, and he was just waiting for the perfect time to act. As this was all happening, Hio was now in panic. He couldn't even reach the heroes who had promised to be under his command to protect the city. It had been 1.5 hours since the disaster happened, and he still had nothing. All the people around him were a bunch of scaredy cats. Someone then told Hia that he shouldn't have been so ruthless towards Mask in the first place, and this statement got to him. Someone then suggested that they should just destroy the whole city once and for all. These guys were really too much. They were even proud of this idea of sacrificing a few for the sake of the many. Hia was now starting to see the true colors of these people. People. They don't care about the others at all. He can't believe that this was really happening. This guy broke the tension when he reported that something had changed the situation in Da City. Hea asked if someone had sent a professional to save the city, but as the reports started coming in, they heard something unusual. A monster had come to help the city. Back at the exclusive prison, the building had a huge slash. Now, the hole even reached the lower floors of the building. The guard was also in shock. He told his companion that he saw a monster coming out of the building. Back in the city, the soldiers were still guarding the area. They noticed that the human flowers were coming back again. Some of them started running because they knew they didn't stand a chance against these monsters, but the rest still fulfilled their duty and tried defeating the human flowers. The captain of the squad was then getting absorbed by the vines. One soldier tried saving his captain, but a black aura suddenly passed him. A series of slashes then destroyed the vines in its path. The soldier and his captain were now safe. Meanwhile, Channel was still in her giant form. The reporters were about to retreat, but then something happened. A cameraman saw someone and thought that it was reinforcements. A combination of red and black aura suddenly went straight into the center of the city. The people thought this one was sent by the federal government. They hoped that this hero had come sooner so that Commander Jiang didn't lose his life. This figure continued to slash its way toward the Great Ghost. But as people focused their attention on him, they saw his appearance. Our MC is now back, and he's here to complete the quest the system gave him. He needs to defeat this calamity again. But Q quickly noticed something different between the past great obscenity and the present one. The last one represented destruction, but this one represented life. This new form intended to devour everything in its path. It also wanted to create a new world where there was no sadness or pain. It was the newest form of ultimate evil. But regardless of what form this monster took, Q knew he still needed to defeat it. The core of this monster would help him fight the gods in the Void Realm. Our MC needed to do whatever it takes. Chanlu then started her quest to conquer everything. She asked every living thing to go and merge with her. This monster spread its vines once again. She had absorbed a lot of souls now and became one with them. But then the orbs started popping one by one, and after a few moments, a large number of them were gone. Chanla knew someone was killing her subordinates. She then saw a monster still slashing through her vines. Q had already recognized her face. The monster had manifested itself through Chanlo. Regardless, our MC still ran towards her. Chanla didn't know that this monster was Q. She was also clueless about what kind of monster it was. She tried getting rid of it. However, Q was just waiting for an opening. As soon as she raised her hand, our MC jumped. He performed 1,000 cuts. After this, he continued to approach her. Then, roses appeared to stop Q. They exploded as soon as someone got near them. Luckily, Iraq was fast enough to get past them. The cameraman continued broadcasting this development to the public. This new monster was just too fast. A professional watching began to feel afraid. Every attack and explosion that the monster faced, he managed to dodge them. His speed, reaction time, insight, and agility were all off the charts. The main reason humans were still winning against monsters was because of their intelligence and wisdom. But now, a monster had emerged that showed the same kind of characteristics as a human. The professional was now worrying about the time when monsters would be able to surpass humans. Back to Q. He had already gotten near Channel. As he jumped toward her, he used one of his abilities again. The greatest monster that humanity would ever see had just grown a pair of wings and was about to defeat the Great Ghost. He spread his wings, shocking Chonli. People were confused. Why hadn't Q used his wings immediately when the human flowers exploded? A professional then explained that this was a brilliant move because it was unexpected. This way, Q would have more chances of confusing the opponent. However, these kinds of moves were also risky. Only those who were confident enough in themselves could try them in battles like this. Our MC used Blood Raven and slashed into the air. A dark image of a bird formed and flew toward his opponent. It landed on its head. The cameraman was thrilled to see that Q's attack was effective. The human flowers, who were running toward Chanlu, also stopped. One of them thought that maybe this was a sign that they had won. But then, the human flowers started talking. They all had the same question. They were all asking, "Who is Q?" While recovering, Chanlu also had the same question. After all, they were all connected to each other. She also asked this monster why he had the Blood Raven in his hands. Our MC didn't respond. Chanlu then figured out that her opponent was also a monster. She told him that the two of them didn't need to fight. The new form of the Great Ghost even offered its core to Q, as long as they worked together. The core of the Great Ghost could only be used by those recognized by the monster. Q thought the offer was tempting. Chanlu continued persuading Q to join her in destroying and cleansing the whole world. She told him they could be the gap this world needed. They could change everything. If there were places that couldn't be saved, they could just destroy them and create a new one. This calamity had a new perspective, but her mission was still the same, to destroy the world. The sound of thousands of human flowers echoed all over the place. Even the cameraman up high could feel it. He was now worried because the monsters were communicating with each other. Q kept quiet the whole time. Our MC had no intentions of working with anyone, neither humans nor his fellow monsters. He only had one goal in mind, to kill all the monsters. Since he wasn't answering, Chanel assumed he disagreed. She then told Q that they should now decide who would stay in this world. Chanla made the first move. She used her explosion skill, just like the human flowers. RMC was able to block and protect his body, but then vines started to come after him. He got surrounded. Chanla had gained the upper hand this time. As soon as she recovered, she let out a loud scream. Meanwhile, RMC closed his gargoyle wings again, but used another form of them to destroy the vines around him. Chanla was about to swallow him. Luckily, he managed to dodge it. Q was also quick enough to go around her. He had already killed thousands of giants in his past life, and he knew where their weakness was. Somewhere in that huge body, they were hiding their true form. Since it wasn't inside their head, Q was sure where it was. RMC continued to fly toward Chanlo. He then used Blood Raven again and slashed through the vines. Vines kept growing, trying to protect the monster's main body. The Great Ghost even used its explosion skill again just to get rid of Q. Q was caught by this move, but he still persevered. He knew this was his chance to defeat this calamity. Since it was trying its best to protect this part, he knew this was the right spot. Right spot. He kept on slashing his way through, and not long after, he saw something that was glowing inside. Q knew that this was it. He slashed the last layer, and then he saw it. It was the original body of Chanlu. This girl purposely turned her body around, and the Blood Raven met her. Chanlu didn't expect this monster to do the impossible, but with his last attack, Q had no more energy left. He was already about to fall. The vines of this calamity monster stopped him from falling. She was now thinking about what she should do about this monster in front of her. Chanlu even praised Q for his handsome face behind his mask. He didn't know what to feel. She then told him to just relax. She revealed that she had already lost and was just using her remaining energy to maintain this form. Since her huge body was still standing, the reporters thought that they had lost this battle. After that, he felt like his surroundings were shaking. Even the soldiers and civilians on the ground felt it. Then they saw this thing falling from the sky. It was a bright light, and it was heading down toward the city. It was a nuclear bomb. This move was approved by Yao, his last resort. In the back of his mind, he regretted this decision. Chan Lu and Q saw this and immediately thought that these monsters were really heartless. They were willing to give up the civilians here. She then decided to do the right thing before she died. She wanted everyone to realize something. Chan Lu wanted to show them what kind of people were in the government, the same people who betrayed Moss. She then headed back to her huge form. All of the human flowers started to move again, and they were all connected as one. Chan Lu grew more. She extended her arms as if they were huge branches that would cover the city from all danger. The civilians saw this. The calamity-level monster turned herself into this huge tree. She blocked the nuclear weapon that was about to hit the city. Then, all they saw was a bright light. The human flowers were also disintegrated. Q was also caught in the impact of the explosion, but Chan Lu managed to cover him in her vines. She still protected him at the last second. This happened a few seconds after the nuclear weapon hit the city. The soldiers also tried their best to protect everyone by deploying a massive shield. After that, the people realized something. This calamity monster that was supposed to kill all of them had just protected them from their government. At headquarters, these guys reported to the director that the energy from the Great Ghost had already disappeared. This shocked the director. He also addressed Commander Jiang and told his soul that Du City was secure now. His sacrifice was not in vain. These guys still couldn't believe what they saw. They were saved by a monster. The huge tree also started to split open. As it disappeared, it released beautiful petals throughout the city. A lady tried catching some of them and thought that the scene was pretty. Someone warned her about these petals, saying they could turn her into a monster, but nothing happened. She didn't get mutated. Meanwhile, Q was with Chan Lu. He held her in his arms. Chan Lu woke up and told Q that this was the first time she realized that spring was indeed beautiful. Then, she slowly disappeared as well. With this, the mission of our MC was completed. He had defeated the reincarnation of the Great Ghost. As for his reward, the core of the Great Ghost was delivered into his hands. It was like a green heart. The core changed its form because it was also the heart of Chan Lu. Q then equipped this core into his body, absorbing all of its power. Right after that, Q was transported somewhere. He vanished in the middle of the city. People were all happy as Du City's calamity was defeated. But as they all celebrated, the human flowers appeared once again. Then something happened. One by one, these human flowers turned into humans. These were all the people who had been absorbed by the Great Ghost. These guys were amazed by what they saw. But then, they slowly realized something. The human flowers that had been killed by the nuclear weapon were all humans. With this, the government's propaganda started once again. They spread misinformation on the internet. They even blamed mass for this disaster. Some of these trolls even said that this move shouldn't have happened if Mask had appeared right away. After that, all the information and news about this matter were deleted by the government. It was as if people were not allowed to voice their opinions regarding this matter. These kinds of things were also happening in real life. It was really sad when we realized it. Meanwhile, these congressmen were back at it again with their meetings. They were now discussing the preventive measures they had taken with social media. They made sure that people would still blame Mask for this disaster. Hio was still silent about what had happened. It turned out that this man had really planned things through. They suggested the nuclear weapon to kill thousands in the city and use it to get Hia's position. This guy then came forward and acted as Hia's spokesperson. He told everyone that all of the people present in the meeting had agreed on the nuclear weapon. But the main problem was how they could turn this disaster into an opportunity. He was really planning to pin everything on Mask. This guy then interjected, saying that this plan was impossible because Mask was not even present in the city. That same reason was what they would use to gain the vote of the people. They would spread news implying that they had been forced to do such a thing because Mask didn't come to rescue the city. He also wanted to add that after all the resources that humanity had given to Mask, he still didn't take responsibility to act as their hero. This guy was pure evil, an expert at ruining someone's image to make themselves look good. All the people inside the room were speechless. After that, Hia and this man were left inside the room. He assured Hia that everything was now under his control. But Hia revealed that he was not worried about that. This incident made him realize that humanity was still not ready to take on the monsters. Their manpower was still lacking. He then asked this guy about the preparation of their new experiments called Morning Sunday. This guy reported that after hundreds of attempts, they had now seen some successful subjects. Some of the bodies were able to maintain their monster forms for a long period of time. He told Hia that sooner or later, their attempt to fuse humans and monsters would be successful. He also told his president that they would be the ones to ascend mankind to new heights. Soon, humanity would be able to reach everything, even the gods. This was the map where the battle between humans and monsters was happening. This vast land area was up to 1 million square kilometers. It was also said that this made up parts of Africa, South America, and all of Antarctica. This was where Mask had been assigned last time. He led the people here, but monsters were coming from everywhere. It was like their den. Thus, this place was called the birthplace of calamity, the source of all monsters.